Welcome to another episode of Beyond the Campus. I'm Michelle Johnston. I'm the Dean of the College of Education and Human Services at Ferris State University. And once a month I get together with my colleagues and students and we talk about some of the interesting things that are happening on campus as well as in the community. Today I'd like to introduce my friends. Associate Professor Scott Heron, thank you for coming.
It's a pleasure.
And Kim Betters, thank you. And Megan, thank you very much for coming. Megan and Kim are part of the group called Ferris Recyclers, and we have a lot of things today to talk about recycling and some of the initiatives that are happening in Big Rapids and the Ferris community. But first, I'm going to tell a little secret. Scott, he's going to blush, that happens every time. He's my mother's favorite professor. And the reason he is my mother's favorite professor is that she went to a meeting at Houghton Lake about sustainability, about water quality, and about how we improve the lakes in Michigan. Scott and his students were there, and they did a very impressive job. So everybody knows about the hard work you do, and we should all be proud of you, so thanks.
Thank you.
Well, Megan, I understand you're the president?
Yes, I am.
Oh,
or I'm the vice president.
The vice president. Okay, can you tell me a little bit about recyclers and what a vice president does?
Well, basically, we started the organization because we found out that we didn't really have a concrete recycling program here, and we wanted to do something about it. So, which all started because of Kim's speech in one of our classes that talked about energy-saving ways and things of that nature. So we got together and we just started talking about recycling, and we found out that we were really passionate about it. So we started the group, and as the vice president, I basically kind of work on finding out new ways that we can kind of reach out to the community, and I try talking with the fellow professors and kind of getting the word out about recycling. And on top of that, I do a tally of all the recyclables that we collect.
Oh, wonderful. Kim, that speech must have been really moving.
Yeah, it wasn't really that important. It was about ethanol, and then I also did another speech about garbage that coming from Canada. So between the two of them, we pretty much hit every single type of recyclable or renewable energy.
Well, Kim, are people involved? Are you trying to get more people involved?
Yeah, actually our main goal is to get the community and the campus involved. Our main goal is to have Ferris take over a recycling program as a university program, not as just a student organization, and that's what we're working on right now mainly.
Okay, do other universities do this?
Mm-hmm.
Yes.
It's become a norm that probably at least half or more of the universities out there have university-run recycling programs, and if not university-run ones that are at least a little bit better coordinated across campus so that individual efforts from student groups and faculty can be a little bit better received and coordinated. And that would be an excellent role that physical plant could have, as well as work-study students could really help out in this
That would be
initiative.
an interesting way to do it. What are some of the activities that you pursue?
Well, our main activity now is collecting recyclables in the dorms. We have a program where every Thursday and Friday we're in one of the residence halls collecting recyclables from 10 to 1. And that's mainly what we're doing this semester, is just trying to get the students involved and get their interest in the program.
Great. Now, I was telling Scott before you came, in my office I have a box right behind my desk, and I throw all my office papers, memos, phone reminders of phone calls, I throw those. And then I have another pile of newspapers. What else I don't feel like I'm doing enough. What else could I do? Do you have some ideas? Any of you or Scott?
Well, the only thing I can really think of is every time you buy something or there's something just sitting around, just stop and think, is this recyclable? Like especially water bottles. A lot of people, they know they're recyclable, but when they're, just drinking out of it, they don't think and they just throw it away. And that's actually one of the major things that is going into the landfills is plastics, and those are easily recyclable. And you could also recycle tin cans, like maybe if you bring soup or something for lunch. There's a lot of things that are recyclable. You just have to kind of look for them.
You could also, another good thing would be to, when you purchase something, try to think about how much packaging there is, and try to purchase something with less packaging so you're not using as many materials, and then what you are using you're recycling. so that you're continuing the cycle instead of ending it.
I'm thinking with the plastic bottles, though, I'm going to have to get another box. So on the back of my desk is going to look pretty sloppy. Do you have some suggestions for me or for the university?
One thing I was thinking of is faculty and administrators. We often get a lot of free book offers in the mail, solicited and unsolicited, and way too many of the faculty tear open those covers, take a look at this book, say, okay, I'm going to either keep it or not, and they just throw the the cardboard that these things usually are packaged in right into the garbage. And people like myself will sometimes go into the trash bin, take them out of there. And Willie Carpenter over at Physical Plant, one of his jobs has been to basically make sure that a cardboard recycling program across campus works. And so we have these big blue bins that are for cardboard only. And so, those of us will break down the cardboard and put it in there. And that's what that Ferris recycling truck that some of you probably see across campus. They're right now really only recycling the cardboard. And they do quite a bit of that. But too many people just throw cardboard into the garbage.
Well, what I do personally at home, I have boxes in my garage. And then periodically, everything goes in the trunk and off I go to the recycler. But probably I'm wasting gas doing that. But are there things I should do? I'm an administrator. Are there things I can do to encourage my colleagues across the campus to do something?
From standpoint as a faculty, one thing that I'm hoping could happen on this campus that would really help at the level of deans and vice presidents are the positions that you have would allow you to institute things like, I do have a recycling bin as well as a trash bin in my particular office. And I think that if we were to look at instituting something where we have all the faculty are given right at their desks, both a recycling bin and a trash bin, we can ultimately get to the point where we can do that cycling, almost like desk side recycling, and for faculty and staff, that would work out really well and allow people to do it on the source. And that could be supported at the upper level so that it's not individuals like yourself or myself doing this, and then 90% of our colleagues are just trashing everything. Okay,
that's wonderful advice. Do you have any other advice,
Well, for students, I would just pay attention to what they collect at the desk. I know that pretty much every residence hall collects paper, so use copy paper. Just bring it down there, drop it off on your way through. Maybe take a second look at, if you're going to throw away the styrofoam or the plastic bottle, think of how much effort it would really take to keep it.
Well, and also, when you go to a dining hall like Mascar or Sunrise, if you're going to eat there, eat with a plate and like a cup instead of taking, a paper cup and a styrofoam tray, because then they just throw it away, and it's just more of a problem. So whenever we go to eat together at Sunrise, we'll eat with a plate and tray and silverware, instead.
Okay, so it's all personal activities.
Yeah, there are things that the institution can do, and we're hoping that those things will change. One of the things that dining services with both catering and the dining services, and I do eat over at places like Mascar and Quiznos and Westview, and I've noticed that the institution has not made it convenient for people to make smart choices. They put things like styrofoam on the front line, and you actually have to take more effort to get the china. And that's probably something that they could educate and say, hey, we have a button that tears out or weighs the styrofoam differently than china. You're not going to get charged more if you pick china instead of styrofoam. And then put the china up front, whereas having more difficulty, you have to ask for the styrofoam. Those are the types of things that could happen in dining services. And we'll hopefully see some of those things change. Because Stan, the head of catering, has been very, very supportive, and he's one of the people that's really helping with our Focus the Nation event, where they're going to talk about some of the efforts that dining is doing and could be doing.
Excellent. I thought when you talked about the recycling truck, when one of my sons, I have two sons, when one was in college, he drove the recycling van. And it was an advantage because it was the only way he could get around campus and with the motorized vehicle. And my other son was called the environmental proctor of SIS dorm. And so it's kind of a highfalutin name for the person that was promoting recycling. Do you have officers or people in the dorms that represent you and work on these kinds of things?
We don't have individual people in each dorm. Mainly our members are in the honors program. So we have quite a few representatives from those halls, but we're trying to work to get representatives from each hall. That's one of our other goals, is trying to just get all of the students involved, not just those who have to join an RSO.
Okay.
Also, we've been talking with the hall councils and trying to spread the word about the new opportunity that we have on campus and to take advantage and to get their fellow students involved so that, you know, we have more people involved all across campus instead of just in the 4 halls.
I bet the audience would probably want to know what the scoop on Captain Planet is out there,
What
too,
do you want to tell us?
Well,
That's a good suggestion.
one of our members last semester dressed up as Captain Planet, one of our good friends, and he spread the word about recycling all afternoon. He was just out there, and you could take pictures
Sort
with
of
him.
in the middle of
Yep,
in
he
the
was
quad?
right in the quad, and he was just telling everybody to recycle, and you know, he saw paper running, he was chasing it down, grabbing
I love it.
So, yeah, it was a great
And again,
time.
what did he wear for that?
We actually made a costume
Oh,
for
yeah.
him. Yep.
And the gals have a great website that, you know, they could probably provide that there's lots of cool pictures of
Oh,
them.
yeah.
good.
Yeah, all of our pictures are pretty much posted.
And
on
how
our
do we get
website.
to that website?
It's www.freewebs.com/Ferris Recyclers.
Okay, great. Now, are there other faculty members and students involved in this?
Well, our advisor for our RSO is Paul Klatt. He's also in the biology department. We've had support from Dr. Dorado. He is the
advisor
he's mainly the advisor for ACS. That's how we know him, and he's approached us about funding for bins or if we ever needed anything to let him know. So they've been supportive of our group as well.
Good, good. And I know one of my faculty, Denise Minton, works on it. And so
Yes,
she's
yes.
been reminding me of all this. Now, when you sent me all the information to read about, I read about green campuses.
Yes.
Is this part of the green campus movement?
I think for Ferris it is. A lot of campuses have taken the initiative and have emplaced really, really good recycling programs where people really don't have to do anything. It's all run by the university. They make it convenient. They make it easy. And I think that that's something that we really need to work for.
Maybe that could be a plan.
A way to look at it is that every campus has its own unique situations and its histories, and Ferris had, you know, a little bit to do when it came to issues like diversity, political engagement, or sustainability, and so we knew where we were at. And so when it came to things like, I was asked to lead a Focus the Nation, you know, Ferris type of effort, I was like, well, solutions to global warming, well, heck, I can't just take on the big picture until we deal with what specifically needs to happen at Ferris. And we knew that we have to start small, like recycling. And when I heard the awesome things that these ladies were doing, where they were doing the things that our institution should be doing, and you go and you see the pictures, and they're doing these, you know, amazing efforts, it tells you, wow, you know, we need to highlight this. And so then, you know, we talked, and Denise Minton and I said, I think we're going to ask the Political Engagement Project to highlight recycling, reducing, reusing, and respecting the resources, and let's make that our issue to deal with right now, and that's going to be our current sustainability focus. And it'll expand beyond that, but you got to start with something that's manageable and step up from there. And these ladies really, you know, have really shown the campus what
wonderful.
grassroots are about.
Isn't that wonderful to be part of something so exciting? Well, when you mentioned Focus the Nation, I have your flyer right here, and I know that our viewers are going to be watching. They'll see your logo, and they'll see information about the event you're having on the 22nd, or the 27th. It's been rescheduled. It's about global warming, and it's involving people from all over. The mayor, I think, from Big Rapids is part of it. How did you get involved in that, and how are all of you doing, and what will I expect to see that evening?
Would you like to
Well, basically, it's kind of like a panel. There'll be people on the panel that talk about different ways that the community's doing what they can, and you know what they hope to see, and what we've been doing will be on the panel as well, and talking about the steps we've taken. And people can ask us questions about, you know, what we're doing, how they can get involved with our group, and it's kind of just an eye-opener for people to kind of get to know a little bit more about, you know, recycling and helping out the environment.
Okay, I noticed, well, you said Ferris Catering is going to be involved. What are they doing?
Well, and where it comes out to is we realized, you know, anything that's happening that's going to be dealing with recycling, it cannot be this isolated university effort that doesn't involve the community that we live in. And so Denise and I, we looked at who do we need to bring to the table if we're going to talk about this. And so we realized let's focus on Big Rapids and on the campus. And so we decided the mayor is a new mayor,
yeah.
Mark Orwa, so we said let's make sure that we can have him. Let's deal with one of our city council men or women. And so we ended up getting Lynn Anderson, who also runs the Great Lakes Bookstore. Then we got the head of the recycling center, the Recycle Center of Mecosta County, Chris Lucchese. So we had a representation from off campus, but then we wanted representation on campus, and so we wanted this Ferris Recyclers with these gals to represent the student perspective, but we also wanted physical plant and their efforts to be acknowledged. So we asked Michael Hughes to represent what's going on there, and then we wanted to make sure that there's a huge component to any of this in dining services, and so that's all the dining halls as well as catering. And so Stan from the director of catering was asked to kind of be the point person on that. And they're not only going to be talking and probably bringing in one of their Gordon Food Services sustainability people to this event, but they're also going to have some more organic and environmentally friendly and sustainable food at that catering event. So we're trying to show and demonstrate that you can do things a little bit more environmentally aware. You don't have to have a bunch of styrofoam. You don't have to have a bunch of waste that's produced out. And we're pretty excited to show that this, can be something that could be adopted on campus.
Excellent. Now, when you mentioned food, and I read this, the organic food, there's also a push for local food, isn't there?
Yes, there is.
And why is that so important as we recycle and think about greenness?
Well, if it comes from the local area, there's less processing involved, there's less shipping involved. It encourages local businesses. Overall, it's just a better choice.
And I understand it saves energy, too?
It sure does. And when we look at programs that have happened nationwide, some of the sustainability efforts, when institutions have taken and focused on local food and they tried to get healthy food, organic food, create better working relationships with local farmers, we have great farm markets here. Mm-hmm. You have the potential, in addition to getting good healthy food, to actually save money because people end up starting to realize there's a significant cost savings when you don't have the major transportation costs that are involved with some of these large ones. And so, contrary to what the big organizations will tell you, there can actually be savings for dining services, as well as students saying, wow, did you taste those strawberries and those tomatoes?
Real tomatoes.
They actually tasted good. Yeah. And you can even get meats from our Amish producers. You can get breads from our local producers. It's just something that isn't happening too often. And so that's what we're trying to get Ferris thinking along those lines.
And I noticed that evening, too, there'll be a giant sort of, I guess it's going to be a webcast coming from, a nationwide webcast coming from Stanford University or something.
Should I speak on that?
Yeah,
I
think you know more than we do.
The event that Focus the Nation was a grassroots student-driven project that just happened this 2007 through 2008. And their idea was, let's focus the entire nation on the issues of solutions to global warming, not just the issue of global warming, but we want to see this nation change its direction, kind of like, in a sense, the way the Kyoto Protocol was taken on by a lot of nations across the world, but America said, it's not for us. China said, it's not for us. It'll cost us too much. So a lot of mayors have signed on to things like that. And what the idea was is that during this campaign of the next president, there's been a media blackout when it comes to the issue of global warming, even though it's on most voters' minds. When you talk to voters, they say it's an important issue. You talk to candidates, they don't mention it. So the Focus the Nation group decided we were going to force this to happen by having everybody, institutions of higher learning mostly, but also K-12 schools, focus on what we can do in this country, and let's vote, and let's take this to Congress. And so it happened first on January 30th, where over 1,600 institutions nationwide all were talking about and watching this webcast called the 2% Solution. Now our event ironically got canceled because
of snow.
The snow. And people say, well, how does a global warming event get canceled by a snowstorm? But I said, do you realize that 2 days before we had temperatures up in the 40s?
Right.
All the snow melted, it got warm. We had a lot of rain, then the temperature dropped back down. We got all that ice, then we got down into snow, and then the wind started and we got that blizzard, and that was what canceled all of classes, and most of you probably enjoyed having the day off.
I think the students may
Yeah.
have.
But that would have not happened if the temperatures hadn't gone up.
Right,
Now, is
and
that
if
global?
they had been stable.
Yes, they would have been just a normal late
Yeah.
January snow. Is that global warming? No, but that is the erratic weather patterns that are more pronounced when you have a climate out of balance. And that's the type of thing that this is focusing on, is what kind of solutions are out there nationwide. Here at Ferris, we're thinking, let's talk things like, recycling. Let's talk about reducing. But nationwide, that's not going to cut it. You got to go way beyond it, and that's what this webcast is about.
Okay, and I know-
it will be broadcast on that night.
On that night,
Yeah,
too,
'cause
like
they
a rebroadcast?
Yeah, they
or it's-
archived it,
Okay.
and it was produced by that, at the Earth Network TV. And you can go to their website, and anybody can view it. So we'll
Okay.
be viewing it that day.
Okay, excellent. Now, I noticed that the National Wildlife Foundation is involved.
Mm-hmm.
How are they involved? I have a personal experience, but you may know more about how they're involved.
They were one of the major funders and producers of it. Earth Day Network TV kind of, was the venue that it was on. You got your Stanford climate scientists, you got your green economists, or your economists that were dealing with this, as well as green jobs type of experts. And all these people came together and put together a really quality, broadcast. And that's kind of where they've kind of came in.
Okay. Well, I can tell you my personal experience. The National Wildlife Federation has a network of backyard refuge, and I applied to have my yard become part of the refuge. That everybody says it, so it keeps me from mowing. But you have to have a habitat, you have to have trees, you have to have a water source, all for wildlife, animals, everybody to be sustainable. And I think they view as this network of backyard refuges will help sustain the environment too. Now they're going to have some sustainability experts. What are sustainability experts, and what should we be looking for?
Well, someday maybe our campus will have a sustainability expert. Someday we might have a chief sustainability officer in addition to like a chief diversity officer, because that's a push that industry and academia are going toward. But at our campus, there's probably no perfect sustainability expert, but there's those of us that are involved in certain aspects of that movement, whether it's students who have quite a bit of knowledge about the
they do.
recycling, faculty like Denise Mitten and I who teach the ecology and teach the environmental management and recreation. There's people over in HVAC that teach about all the things that going into less energy use in heating, air conditioning, any of those ventilation systems. There's people in engineering, that green architects, and so we'll have some of each of them represented at the event. And there'll be panels and booths so that people can go and check out, hey, what's happening.
Okay, who should all attend then? This event?
I think it should be all students, faculty, and I'm assuming it's open to the community as
Yep.
well. So, I mean, it'd be great to have some from each come, just so that the word gets out.
And it's the 27th of February?
Yep, and it starts at 6
Six.
p.m. And it's a 5-star, service event for the students. So that's a bonus that they can get some 5-star status. Other than that, there's going to be good food, organic, food, and very, thoughtful food. And the panel will start, I believe, at 6:45 and go for about an hour, and then at 8 that would be the national thing. So we kind of have networking, socializing, eating, checking things out, including dropping off your recyclables,
Oh, wow.
followed by the panel discussion, and then at 6:45, and then at 8 would be the national
The
webcast,
national webcast.
and it'll be fun
And I understand it's going to be in the IRC?
Yes.
in the new auditorium.
Auditorium.
So
Oh,
most people
wow.
haven't
Well,
been
I'll
in
be
there.
able to see it. I do hope a lot of the community comes, and I will be there, so I'm thrilled. As I also read the material, talked about the 4 R's. And I don't know what those 4 R's are.
Reduce, reuse,
So reduce what?
recycle,
Reduce what?
and
A new one, respect.
Yes,
Okay.
the 4th R.
So what, I'm reducing what?
You're reducing your waste. You're reducing the amount that's getting thrown out, that's entering the landfills.
And then
Reuse.
reuse. So I use things over and over.
We reuse our ink cartridges, like the campus recycles and reuses our printer cartridges.
Okay. So we're reusing. Recycle?
If you do have to throw it away in the right place. Don't send it to the landfill. Send it to a recycling center.
And then respect?
And that one's
You
that
get the
one's
hard one. You get the hard
Yeah.
one. I would just say respect is just, I mean, you've got to respect the, your environment. I mean, if we don't treat it with respect, where are our children going to live? Where are our children's children? We've got to think about the future because we may not be here, but they will. And, I don't want them to live someplace that's not very nice and clean. And so.
And I was just going to say, people forget about all material culture that we have comes from somewhere. And people think, well, where does plastic come from? Well, most plastic comes from oil. It's an oil-based product. It's a polymer. So it's either coming from corn oil, which in this case in America it does. It used to come from petroleum oil until that got too expensive, and then they shifted over to there. So everything comes from somewhere. Styrofoam comes from somewhere. And so it's looking at those natural resources that you start with and being a little bit more thoughtful and respectful of those resources instead of just treating them as a resource to be utilized and depleted, and we can always get more.
Okay.
And so it's being a little bit more thoughtful.
Okay, at the end of all of this, that evening, what should we all have learned? Will there be something I'll take home?
I would say you'd probably take home a lot more knowledge. I hope that people take a lot more knowledge from, what they can do, what they can, how they can help, how they can put in their effort. Because if we all chip in and we all do our part, then it will be a lot easier than, 5 people or 10 people or how many ever people. If everyone does their part, it'd be so easy to do.
And Kim, would you add something that
Well,
we should learn?
I just hope that everyone comes away with something new that they've learned and perhaps some sort of habit that they've changed, or maybe they think twice about the bottle, or they say, yeah, maybe it wouldn't be too hard to, keep that and bring it to the recycling center. If it changes them in any way, I think it's worth it for them to go.
Oh, good. And I also read, because I spent a lot of time, I found that your flyers fascinating. So they really were helpful for me, that recycling does save energy.
Mm-hmm.
How does that do that?
That's a great question. People wouldn't even know where recycling fits into a global warming solution.
Yeah.
But it takes energy to make material products. It takes energy to waste them and put them into landfills. And so if you can cut off the need for more resources, then you can save energy by the lack of production. Most energy costs, whether it's on this campus or whether it's anywhere in industry, are at the front end, not at the tail end of things. And so if we can shut a door instead of letting the air out, or if we can recycle something instead of having to get a new styrofoam container or have new trees planted to cut down wood to get pulp to get paper, then we've basically used less energy because we've cut the demand for those resources. And that's key. If you cut the demand and the need for energy and other resources, you're part of the solution instead of part of the problem.
It's good to know. At a Ferris event that I attended, we visited a Ford plant that was a green Ford plant. The roof had grass, and a lot of the recycling occurred because of the grass. It would collect the moisture and cool the plant.
Wouldn't it be great to have? I have a student, that's basically one of our architects and a teacher who she is actually doing a research project on green roofs. That's what those are called.
And it was very
And wouldn't it be
interesting.
great to see Ferris have green roofs as a part of our sustainability?
That might be our future. Now, Scott and Kim and Megan, I want to thank you. I have to end this conversation. I wish we could go on. And I also have to thank our television production crew because, again, they've done an excellent job. These are our students, and I'm really proud of all of them. And I want to remind people there are 2 things that we're looking at. And one is the recycling, but we're also going to look at the energy conference. So again, thank everybody. I want to thank you and thank the viewers.
Well, thank you for having us.
Oh, we enjoyed it.